Hello, everybody. You are welcome to the September edition of our monthly workshop. To have you all. This event is hosted by Richflood, a leading continental provider of environmental and social due diligence services for investment in Africa. The topic for discussion today is remediation management, that is incorporating sustainability considerations into remediation projects. Today's workshop will focus on ways of developing and promoting innovative cleanup strategies that restore contaminated sites to productive use, reduce associated costs, and promote environmental stewardship. Also, the environmental guidelines and laws, as well as the standard for the petroleum Nigeria, will be discussed, and different updates on innovations in remediations will be explored. This workshop is segmented into two sessions, that is the morning and afternoon sessions, and each of these sessions will last for 1 hour. Before we get started, I would like to make clarifications on a few items so that we have a maximum participation throughout this event. First is that this workshop will be recorded, and the recording will be made available on Richflood YouTube channel. Secondly, all participants for this workshop are set up in listen-only mode. That is, you can only listen and mute yourself when there is need for you to do that. Furthermore, I will request everyone to rename his or herself and add the name of the organization in brackets so you can be properly identified when the time comes. Lastly, full question will be utilized during the course of this workshop, and we would therefore appreciate your participation in the pool. Let me also inform us that we will have opportunity to send in questions at any time during the presentation, and our speaker will address them during the question and answer session at the end of the presentation. To do this, kindly utilize the chat box that is at the bottom of your computer screen and at the top of your tablet for participants that are using tablets to log into this event. Kindly include your name and location alongside your questions so that you will properly. Right now, I will now introduce the speaker who will be taking us through this session in the person of Engineer Olatukumbo Karimo. Engineer Olatukumbo Karimo is a manager with the Department of Petroleum Resources and head of Environmental Incidents Management Units in the Health, Safety and Environment Strategy Business Unit of the Department of Petroleum Resources. And DPR is the technical regulator of the Nigerian oil and gas industry. Engineer Karimo has over 18 years experience and has displayed tact and vast knowledge in HSE-related issues across the oil and gas value chain throughout his career. He has played key roles and led teams on numerous environmental and safety studies related to oil and gas development projects in the upstream and downstream sectors. Engineer Karimo has served in several committees across the oil and gas value chain at various capacities, as well as represented the Department of Petroleum Resources in local and international fora. Engineer Karimo is a member of various professional bodies, including the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Institution of Chemical Engineers, and is also registered by Koran as a practicing engineer in Nigeria. I will now call on Engineer Olatukumbo Karimo for his presentation. The stage is yours. Please go ahead with your presentation, sir.
All right. Thank you very much for the citation. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, to this webinar. Welcome to this webinar. On behalf of the Director, CEO, Department of Petroleum Resources and the management of the DPR, I welcome you to this webinar. Today, we'll be looking at the topic, incorporating sustainability considerations into remediation projects, the DPR perspective. Next slide, please. So this is the outline of the presentation. It's quite heavy. I'm going to quickly run through the first 10 or so slides. Those are just preambles and introduction of the core roles of the Department of Petroleum Resources. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide is talking about giving us a snapshot of the Nigerian oil and gas landscape and the impact on the Nigerian economy. You can see on your left-hand side, oil and gas is key. We all know that is a mainstay for the nation. Some facts about Nigerian oil and gas: the largest producer in Africa, the 7th largest in the world. Our oil reserves, 37 billion barrels. We're trying to grow that to 50 billion barrels. And of course, we know we have some exciting potentials in the gas sector too. In fact, this decade has been declared a decade of gas by the Nigerian government. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide is showing a summary of our assets across the entire value chain, from upstream, midstream to downstream. Number of OPLs, OMLs, number of surface facilities, FPSOs and FSOs, up to downstream. The pipeline lengths, both for crude oil and white products, LPG depots, and all the works. This is just a top view. Next slide, please. Okay, yeah, the Department of Petroleum Resources, yes, is the Nigerian oil and gas industry regulator responsible for the administration of petroleum laws and statutes. Our core role essentially lies in the formulation, integration, and implementation of policies to ensure sustainability in the oil and gas industry operations in Nigeria. So we formulate, we integrate, and then we implement. Essentially, sustainability is core, is at the heart of all that we do. Next slide, please. Okay, so the DPR, the new DPR, we are not just a regulator. We guarantee investment. We issue licenses in that regard. That guarantees investment in the industry. We issue permits to enable participation of all and sundry, duly qualified, and then we give approvals, and that authorizes activities. So the DPR is not just a regulator. The DPR is an opportunity house. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are our core, our mission, our vision, and our core values. So this is for reference purpose. Next slide. Let's go on, please. All right, thank you. So legislative framework, of course, all what we do is premised on very robust legislative frameworks. Of course, as you know, there are 3 tiers of legislation. There's the Act of Parliament, then the second tier, those are the regulations, then of course the guidelines. So primarily the Petroleum Act of 1969 up until a few weeks ago was the core Petroleum Act in the country, but that has been usurped by the PIA of 2021. That is the overriding act now. Then of course we have the MOSR, Petroleum Drilling and Production Regulations, Oil and Gas Pipeline Regulations. Then of course very key. We have the environmental guidelines and standards for the petroleum industry in Nigeria. That's the EGASPIN, the latest edition being the 2018 edition. Next slide, please. Okay, contamination from oil and gas activities. Despite the DPR's continuous implementation of our mandates in ensuring sustainability, the industry remains a major polluter. We cannot actually run away from this. This is reality. There are various forms of contamination within the industry. Of course, chiefly is the loss of containment from pipelines. We're going to talk about that later. Of course, the contamination for surface water, soil, swamp, groundwater pollution, air pollution, and all that. So this is a sore thumb in our faces in the oil and gas industry in Nigeria. Next slide, please. Okay, so spills remains, of course, the chief environmental polluter in the oil and gas industry. Of course, crude oil, produce formation water, drilling fluids, and other chemicals. These are all various forms of pollution, causes of pollution in the industry. Of course, chiefly is the crude oil. If you look at the graphs, it's just a snippet of quantities spilled across a number of years, and then the causes of these spills. If you look at the bottom graph, you will see that sabotage constitutes up to 85, 95, 90% of the causes of pollution in the industry. Next slide, please. Okay, as I said earlier, 75% here, saying 75% is caused by sabotage. Actually, a bit more than that. So various facilities through which this loss of containment occurs. Of course, chiefly amongst them is the pipeline, various manifolds, wellheads, flow stations, etc. Next slide, please. Okay, so when a spill occurs, what do we do? What happens? Okay, we have a mechanism in place to address this, to tackle this. So when a spill occurs, when a spill is noticed in the industry, it is expected that the operator, within 24 hours of noticing that loss of containment, notifies the DPR. There is a Form A, spill notification form that the operator is expected to send to the DPR electronically to notify us of such a loss of containment. And then within 14 days maximum, a JIV, Joint Investigative Visit, is expected to be carried out, primarily to determine the cause of spill, the quantity spilled, and then the extent of impact. Of course, prior to this, if it's a pipeline, the pipeline is expected to have been shut in, and then the first year of response, at least containment boom at the minimum, is expected to be deployed to curtail the spread of the hydrocarbon spill. So after that, there is a Form C, which comes up after cleanup work, repairs and cleanup work has been concluded, which should ideally happen within 28 days. And then finally, the eventual intervention is the remedial action, which is expected to commence within 3 months of the incident happening. Of course, after that, if the site is certified clean, and then it's closed up. On the top right-hand corner, you have the various classification of the spills. We have Tier 1, we have Tier 2, we have Tier 3, minor, medium, and major, with varying quantities depending on if it's on land, inland waters, land or offshore. So those are the spill quantification mechanism that we have. So the company, the operator, is expected to have capacity, in-house capacity, to handle tier 1 spills. So that is a prerequisite. So to say, you are supposed to have a containment spill response equipment to handle tier 1 spills in your facility, in-house. Then there's the CNA, that's the Clean Nigeria Associate, is a cooperative of various operators. And then the OSRL, Oil Spill Response Limited, I think it's a UK-based company. They are usually called upon if the spill extends to tier 2. So then, of course, the tier 3 spill, that is when the National Oil Spill Contingency Plan is activated. So at the bottom right-hand corner is just a snippet of our oil spill data in-house. Next slide, please. Okay, so I mentioned earlier the post-cleanup inspection. We call it the PCI. So it usually starts when the cleanup and when the repair works has been concluded. That's after the GIV, after the joint investigation visit. You do the repair works, and then you conduct the cleanup of the impacted site. So PCI begins with an assessment of the previous spill information documented. And then, of course, you do physical inspection to determine how effective the exercise you've carried out. And of course, the inspection involves both visual and olfactory observations. Of course, there is a second step, which involves sample collection and then laboratory analysis to find out if the result of this sample analysis will check the pollutant of interest against the environmentally acceptable limits, and then the site is either accepted for closeout at that stage, or it progresses to remediation, depending on the outcome of the results of the laboratory analysis. Next slide, please. Okay, so the next step now, why remediation? So, what happens when a spill impacted site does not pass the PCI process? So in that case, we proceed to remedial action. So basically, there are two types. There is the remedial action plan may be taken on a risk-based corrective action basis, or it could be remedial action based on environmental limits. Those are the target and intervention values as stated in the EGASPIN. So you could choose to go either way. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's take a case study just to put everything in proper perspective. So a spill, a company, hypothetical company, DRS, reported a spill which occurred on the 12th of August 2021 at 4 p.m. with an estimated spill quantity of 50 barrels. The cause of spill has been identified as sabotage, where the spill point has been isolated and contained using spill emergency response tool. Recovered quantity of crude oil has been estimated at 20 barrels. Cleanup has been done. You can see the processes. You reported the spill, went to site, determined the cause of spill. The containment was deployed. Recovery was carried out. Then, of course, the recovery and repairs, and then cleanup has taken place. Cleanup has been done. However, the contaminant of interest, contaminant of concern are well above the intervention value, factoring depth delineation pattern, whilst considering other factors as following the post-cleanup inspection. So the next course of action now is to develop a remedial action plan, call it the RAP. This is submitted to the department for review and approval. If satisfactory, it is approved if the outcome of the review is satisfactory. These steps initiate the remediation and restoration process of the contaminated site to near as close as near as possible to the initial state for future use. Next slide, please. Okay, so the remedial action plan review. So it actually varies from site to site. So you cannot do one, you cannot submit an RAP. It's not all in one. It is on a case-by-case basis, on a site-by-site basis, on an incident-by-incident basis, so to say. So the selection of any approach or alternative for environmental remediation considers the type of contaminant, the environmental component affected, the location, and the potential receptors. So it is not one size fits all. So therefore, technologies for contaminated site remediation with consideration given to sustainability index are being tailored and domesticated. So we're actually developing a lot of local manpower to handle these remediation activities within the oil and gas industry. Currently, over 140 RAPs have been approved, and approximately 280 acres of contaminated land is currently being remediated in line with the above strategy. So basically, we carry out a review of the site, do a site assessment based on the extent, the depth, and the levels of contamination of interest against predetermined targets to determine the need for remediation and the best approach going forward. The conceptual site model as a source pathway receptor is considered to determine the source, the transmission pathway, that's the time taken and the scenario for exposure, and possible receptors to determine the need for and remediation approach. So the proposed RAP is reviewed based on the above information in addition to other criteria. So sustainability consideration is a key part, it's an integral part of our RAP review process. Next slide, please. Okay, so remediation action plan, the approval process. So as I said, as I explained earlier, the RAP is submitted, it is reviewed extensively. If it checks all the boxes, it is approved, and then the implementation takes place on site. Some of the sustainability indicators that are considered in all phases of remediation include the environmental sustainability, the economic sustainability, and then the social sustainability. Those are key elements in our review and approval of the RAPs. Next slide, please. Okay, so applying sustainability indices for remediation. As I said earlier, of course, the environmental sustainability, well, which is chief, we have to consider the climatic effect, soil quantity, the water quality and quantity, of course, the air quality, biodiversity, and then, of course, land use. So for the economic sustainability, of course, you check out the commercial viability, the return on investment, net present value, process efficiency, and the output on desired products. So these are some of the things you need to incorporate as part of your review process in approving the RAPs. Social sustainability, for example, you look at the social acceptability, looking at the host community angle, then the social well-being, energy security and external trade, resource conservation, of course, rural development, and then workforce training. This is speaking to the participation and empowerment of the host communities. Sustainable remediation reflects a more holistic approach aimed at balancing the impact and influences of the triple bottom line of sustainability, which I've mentioned, the environmental, the social, and the economics, while protecting human health and the environment. It's a very powerful quote. Next slide, please. Okay, so sustainability indices, our regulators' end-to-end approach. So sustainability indicators considered for remediation of impacted sites prior to the approvals of the RAP. Of course, we look at the environmental footprint. How large is the impacted site? Is it contained within only the right-of-way of the operator? Has it extended to the third-party areas? You know, so you look at minimizing the environmental footprint. So you avoid invasive technology and heavy-duty remedial application. So you try to manage that. And of course, environmental stewardship. You know, you try to incorporate biodiversity protection. You cut down on emission through exploring clean energy use. You minimize use of equipment that require high fuel consumption. You manage your waste well. And then, of course, the social and health aspect. You minimize harmful application of technologies, processes, and products that may cause long-term health issue. The well-being of the host community is always paramount in carrying out all these activities. Then, of course, social justice. You know, I mentioned earlier, job creation, protection of cultural heritage, protection of everyday resources, aesthetic, very important, creation of value for local community through provision of critical needs, and social acceptability through stakeholder engagement. These are very important factors in approving various RAPs because the host community, their feelings has to be assuaged, and they need to feel to be part of the process. Economic viability. What is the commercial viability of the process you want to put in place? The return on investment, the net present value, and of course, you need to ensure process efficiency and effectiveness. Next slide, please. Okay, application of sustainability indices of the impacted site assessments. So as I said earlier, there is a sample collection bit. So in this area, you need to manage your materials, you reuse, you recycle. Then the technique invasion, you try to minimize invasive techniques and technologies as much as possible. The land and ecosystem impacts, the access and the exit from that impacted site, you need to be careful so that you don't cause additional damage to the surrounding ecosystem. And of course, the economic impact. Then in carrying out the laboratory analysis, which is the next tranche, all laboratories that carry out these activities are duly accredited by the DPR. Then of course you need the methodology that they will deploy in carrying out the analysis has to be in line with best industry standard, international standard, the materials used, energy consumption, renewable energies. They have to manage their emissions, and of course the waste disposal, the waste management has to be in place. And then of course, quality assurance. As I mentioned, again, laboratory accreditation is key. If a lab is not registered, we don't know the processes, we cannot operate in the oil and gas industry. Your equipment has to be calibration as at when due. And then, of course, the two-step verification is also deployed. The standard operating procedure has to be in place with adequate supervision in the laboratory setup. Next slide, please. Okay, so sustainability indices in RAP appraisals and selection. So this is just showing a snippet of our approval criteria. So if you submit an RAP, we are not just, we have a review, a robust review process in place. On the top right-hand corner, top right-hand side, you can see the appraisal criteria. Cost is incorporated, the effectiveness of the methodology or the technology for the contaminants you are interested in, loss of amenity, sustainability for ecology, emission, site accessibility, residual liabilities, and then of course so is a rating, and then we do all this against the environmental media to be tested, the soil, the free phase liquid, the groundwater. And then, of course, we look at the various methods that you can use. For example, let's take soil, for example. You are looking at biodegradable soil contamination. Are you going to deploy bioremediation? Are you going to do RENA using windrows? Are you going to deploy biopaths? So we're going to appraise all that under this appraisal criteria, and then we'll come up with the best fit for that situation on ground. So that's what we do for all the parameters, the environmental medias to be treated. Next slide, please. Okay, application of sustainability indices. This is the actual project implementation now. So we look at your methodology, your technology. What strategy are you deploying? So are you transferring the contaminant to another environmental component? Generation of secondary pollution or waste stream. Are you solving one problem and creating another? Minimally invasive technology deployment. Are you coming with heavy machinery? Are you going to uproot the entire mangrove? You know, so we look at all these things in arriving at a conclusion. The process. So we encourage in situ remediation process where feasible as against ex situ. So we prefer that you remediate it in situ on site. Sustainable processes such as tillage, excavation, as applied to in RENA. They are known to affect soil health and increase risk of erosion. So you have to be mindful of that. As good as RENA is, you have to be mindful of the terrain so that you don't cause another environmental problem. However, its implementation is done with due consideration to ensuring reduced risks to the health of the soil and ecosystem. So those are some of the things, or the strategies you need to put in place before you start your remediation process. Then, of course, we look at the process, the products. We ensure the use of only approved environmentally safe products. Of all the remediation products in being used in the oil and gas industry, they've gone through the review process. They've been duly tested and then we found to be safe for use in the Nigerian oil and gas industry. So that is the first prerequisite before those products can be deployed. So we monitor for product application methodology, like the dosing rate, the dilution factor. You have to be mindful again, so that you need to do some calculation. What is the area of the impacted site? What is the segment you need to apply the product, the chemical to? What quantity are you applying? So the dosing rate is very important, because if you don't get it right, it's either the remedial action is not, is not giving you positive result, or you are doing more harm to the bacteria there. So we discourage the introduction of foreign invasive microorganisms and other products that can cause long-term bioaccumulation and health effects. So if you are doing bioremediation as a matter of policy, the DPR does not accept the use of external foreign invasive microorganisms in the Nigerian oil and gas industry. So that is a given. So this is our sustainability approach during remediation implementation phase. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the risk management angle to it. So we do hazard identification, we do social risk assessment, we do risk characterization, intervention, and all that. So next slide. No, sorry. Can you go back, please? Sorry. The CSM and the SPR tool is a determining factor to determine the possible exposure routes of contamination for receptors to reduce risk of exposure by repeated access to an unremediated impacted site. So you need to know the source, you need to identify the pathway, and you need to identify the possible receptors. You need to do this so that you prevent the crude oil from leaving where it is and impacting either unremediated impacted site or, a non-impacted site at all. Next slide, please. Okay, so the $1 million question, the game of the chicken or the egg, which one came first? So where do sustainability consideration begins? Does it begin at the start of the project? Does it begin after contamination? In the DPR, we incorporate environmental issues, sustainability issues, right from the design phase of all projects emanating from the oil and gas industry in Nigeria. So all these things that's why you will see that more often than not, the cause of spill is sabotage, third-party intervention, because at the front end, at the feed stage, at the design stage, all the possibilities of crude oil loss of containment has been factored in, has been taken care of at the design stage. So the possibility of the facility experiencing loss of containment without external intervention is very, very low. So we as DPR, we ensure that at the inception of our project, sustainability consideration, environmental consideration are duly incorporated. Next slide, please. Okay, so as I said, sustainability incorporation in remediation, where it begins. Of course, we have, as I said earlier, we have a regulatory framework, the law, the act, the regulation, and then of course the guidelines. For environmental restoration services, we have the Petroleum Drilling and Production Regulation of 1969 and its various amendments. Of course, the OGISP. I'm sure any player in the oil and gas industry will know the Oil and Gas Industry Service Permit. This from on this platform, potential service providers are expected to obtain their permits from this platform. So if you want to be a player, you apply on this platform. We do a technical presentation with you, and then thereafter you select a site, an impacted site. You carry out a trial run of your proposed technology or your technique or your product. So for a short period of time, you do the pilot test. We appraise your performance, and we only approve environmentally friendly products and technologies. So the RAP management, evaluation of key site assessment indices, as explained earlier, we enforce management system approach. We evaluate risk management, HSE plan. Of course, we monitor, implement, and then we review on a time-to-time basis. Then, of course, technology review, approval, and adaptation. So emission, noise, reduction in design of the process and technology. I've said this earlier, all these are incorporated in the design stage. Sustainable waste management practices, we ensure methodology, product eliminates other environmental effects. And of course, most chiefly, we incorporate sustainability standards. Next slide, please. Okay, yeah, so of course, the DPR, I've talked about the laws and I've mentioned it quite a number of times. That's because really there's nothing we do in the DPR, in the oil and gas industry, that we don't have a backup law or a regulation or a guideline to fall back on. So that is why this keeps coming up. So as I said, the Petroleum Act, now the Petroleum Industry Act 2021, we have the Petroleum Drilling and Production Regulation, we have the Oil Pipeline Ordinance, the Oil Pipeline Act, Petroleum Refining Regulations, oil in navigable waters. We have quite a number of them. Chiefly for the guidelines, we use the environmental guidelines and standards for the petroleum industry in Nigeria. So that is the EGASPIN, which the most current version is 2018. So these are just snippets of some of the key areas, key sections of the EGASPIN that are relevant to this discussion. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are the gains from incorporating sustainability consideration in the remedial action plan and the remediation process in the oil and gas industry? So we talk about investments. As I said earlier, the DPR is not just a regulator, we're an opportunity house, we're a business provider. So we use various instruments, our permits, our approvals, and our licenses to stimulate investment. We strengthen partnership amongst all stakeholders, chiefly the host communities, of course, the operators, and then the regulators, so that we can positively grow the industry. Of course, industry growth. If we can address the issue of remediation in a timely manner, then of course it's a positive for the industry to change the not so good perspective as, I mean, a chief polluter. And of course, sustainable development. We cannot run away from the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. If you look at SDG 13, 14, 15, climate action, you know, life below water, life on land, you know, these are issues that directly affect loss of containment, spillages, and all that. So we need to step up on the incorporation of SD in our remedial action activities. Next slide, please. Challenges of risk management and value generation from impacted sites. Chief amongst this really is continuous reimpactment. This is a big problem. We've had series of complaints about this. It's a big headache, really, you know, because a site that is 90%, 95% remediated, and then these guys go again, and there is a reimpactment on that almost remediated site, and you know, basically it's like having to start all over again. So I think in this aspect, there needs to be a lot of education, a lot of communication. To a large extent, I think the PIA will help in combating and reducing this issue of loss of containment from third-party intervention. Of course, again, the issue of multiple regulators is a challenge. Multiplicity of regulatory institutions in any sector is globally known to be an investor's nightmare. To a large extent too, I believe the PIA has spoken to this. So we expect some positive feedback, some positive activities from this to be better streamlined going forward. Of course, the issue of ignorance, I've talked about education, where we need to, as I said, strengthen partnership and of course, communication and education. Next slide, please. Okay, closing remark now. The issue of environmental sustainability is a matter of collective efforts. The environment is what we have in common, is our natural capital, and we must do everything humanly possible to protect it. The oil and gas industry has come under intense and sustained scrutiny in recent times over our role in environmental degradation and sustainable development, both locally and globally. So it's imperative for us that we make deliberate and concerted effort to improve and manage this negative perception and reverse the trend. This can only be achieved through collaboration of all stakeholders. And this can be achieved through environmental sustainability and sustainable remedial approach. And education to all stakeholders to achieve this compliance is very important. Next slide, please. Thank you very much for listening. Shukran. Danke.
That's a wonderful one, Engineer Olatukunbo Karimu. Thank you very much for the delightful and highly informative presentation and the chipping of the Yoruba at the end of your presentation. We really enjoyed your presentation. And of course, we received a lot of questions from our participants during the course of your presentation, and we will quickly read out a few of them. I know our time is fast spent, but we'll quickly see how to send out those questions so you could properly address them. And the first question here is from Mr. Joe, and Mr. Joe wants to know he's asking what measures are being taken for the health and safety of those responding to oil spill. We want to know the measures that your organization and also agencies that are involved in the remediation process put in place to take care of the health and safety of the people that are responding to the oil spill. Thank you very much. You may respond to that in Karimu.
Okay, thank you very much. So the health and safety of the first responders, there is a minimum level of training. There is a minimum level of PPE. There's a minimum level of there's something we call. I'm even more concerned about the security than the health HSC per se. Of course, HSC is now mostly HSSC, health, safety, security, and the environment. The first the oil and gas industry is a specialized industry. Training is key. Training is very robust. So these guys, they are trained, well trained, and they take all necessary precautions. They go with a medical team. You understand? So it's not, if it's not safe, that's the mantra. If it's not safe, don't do it. The challenge for me, or the challenge for us in the industry, is the security aspect, really. Because we always say, apart from the license to operate that these operators have, they also need the FTO, the freedom to operate. You understand? So that is even more critical for us in responding to this spill. So the training is fine, is robust, and they go with all necessary facility that they need to respond. And if it is not safe, don't do it. So they are well trained and they go with medical team, they go with all that. So they are well taken care of. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for responding to that question. And we have another question here from Nusa Usahon. Nusa says, how is DPR holding all companies to account from the release of the contaminants to the environment using the EGA SPIN 2018, a gas pin 2018. So he's asking how DPR is holding all companies accountable for release of contaminant to the environment.
Okay, thank you very much. If you listen to my presentation, you could see the sequence of activities from the loss of containment. So as I said, the operator is expected to report, because you can know that some of these facilities are in remote areas. For example, the pipeline. If there's a loss of containment from a pipeline at the flow station, you will notice the drop in pressure. So you're expected to do a reconnaissance and see what is happening. And in most cases, the operators, they have a surveillance team, which, chiefly they are the community people. It's part of the way of empowering. So it's part of the community. They do regular patrol. So when they cite something, they report. So they are expected to report. That is the letter of the law. If you do not report and the complaint comes from an external source, then that is an infraction. And then the company will be duly sanctioned for that infraction, for not reporting. You understand? So that's the mechanism in place. It's better for you to report, of course, because of you are losing production, you are impacting the environment. There's nothing to your advantage there, really. So it's better you report so that issue can be addressed, and then you can go back to full production, which is what is best for you, which is what is best for the environment, which is what is best for the country. You understand? So that is the mechanism in place in the best interest of the company. There's really no companies sets out to go and pollute. I mean, why? I've invested millions of dollars to put in place this facility, to explore, to lay pipelines, to do, and then, I want my crude oil to be dripping out to the environment. No, that is not the business model. You understand? So it is in best interest of the operators to report. If they don't report, then it is an infraction, and they are duly sanctioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid we are running out of time, but I will still give out, still sending with that 1 or 2 questions to see if you can accommodate it within the short time.
Sorry, Mr. Moderator. All the questions, you can send them to us. We'll respond to them, and then maybe you can put it on your site or something. I don't know if that will work too. You can send all the questions to us. Let's take as much as we can now. Then send all the questions to us. We'll respond, and maybe you can put it on your site or something.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right,
thank you.
We'll do that. Maybe the last question. The person actually asked 2 questions, but I know you talked about laws and policies guiding regulations as used by the organization in monitoring the operation and in terms of remediation. But the person also asked a second question. That's from Judy. He was asking if there are fees, like what operators pay before they are issued license that will be used for remediation in case there are contaminations in their sites during the course of the operation. Just like we have in the mining industry, before operator or a company starts up mining activities, there are certain fees they pay, and which is used in the reclamation of this mine site at the end of the operation. So I want to know, Jude wants to know if there are things, there are measures like that DPR are put in place for remediation actions during the course of operation if there are contamination.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You heard me mentioning OGISP, Oil and Gas Industry Service Permits. Please note that it is not the operator that carries out the remediation. It is not the operator if I am IOC ABC now, and I have a loss of containment, it is not the IOC ABC that will do the remediation. No, they are service providers. That is where we talk about investment. That is where we talk about encouraging local participation. That is where we talk about using our instrument, our licenses, our permits, our approvals to stimulate investment. That is how we talk about domesticating technology. So we expect third-party players like Richflood, for example, can come to DPR and say, I want to apply to carry out remediation activities in the oil and gas industry. You understand? You go to our OGISP platform, you put in your application. We do a technical presentation with you. You go to the site, you do a pilot. We are satisfied with your methodology, with your technique. And then thereafter, we issue the permit to you. Then you can go to the industry and source for jobs. You understand? So it is not the spiller that will do the remediation. No, it is their third-party people. So like Mr. Jude now, Mr. Jude, if Mr. Jude has a company, he can come to DPR, go to the OJSP, apply. If he has the knowledge and the technical ability, apply for a remediation permit, and then he becomes a player in the industry. Can approach all the shells, all the AGIBs, all the totals in this world, and then bid for jobs. If you are given, then you go to site and carry out the activities. You understand? So that is it. Yes, there are fees payable. Yes, all that is stipulated on that website, ojisp.dpr.gov.ng. So you can get all the details there. So that is the way it plays out. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Engineer Karimu. We have reached out. We are really very much ready to partner with DPR to ensure that we take up this task and assist companies in this remediation approach. So thank you very much for those responses, and it has been a very delightful session with you, and we look forward to having you with us again. So on behalf of Richflood International, which is the organizer of this event, I want to say thank you to all our participants for attending this morning session. We are confident that your understanding about remediation management has been broadened, especially as it relates to incorporating sustainability consideration into remediation projects. So we look forward to having you join us at 3 p.m. for the afternoon session of this workshop. And should you have further questions and contributions, please continue sending them in and forward them to info@richflood.com. Send your questions to info@richflood.com. Even the ones on the chat here, we are going to make sure we gather all of them and see how we can send them across to our speaker to address them. Thank you very much. So at this point, we are free to put on our cameras so that we can take a good photograph for this morning session. Please put on your camera. Let's have a photograph. All our participants. Okay, I think at this they are sending notification for everybody to put on their camera. So let's have everybody put on their camera. Okay. Thank you very much. We are still going to wait for a while to see all our participants. You know, we cherish you a lot and want to see our beautiful faces and have a photo session with all of us as a way of trying to show commitment and interact with all of us having you here. So please put on your cameras. I think notification has been sent across. So you can just tap on the notification if you are asked to on your camera, and that will assist you in putting on your camera. Yeah, we are still waiting. Okay, we're still having camera people coming up. All right, we have BCM, Joe, okay, Wale, Moyemi, thank you very much for your joining us. Thank you very much. Abosede Taiwo, It's nice having you here. Thank you very much. Peter Agube, thank you very much. Nosa, okay, it's nice seeing you. I got your question. Thank you very much for joining us. KI, it's wonderful having you here. Thank you very much. As many of us are on this platform, please put on your camera so that you can quickly have a photo session. Go ahead, put on your camera. You should have received a notification by now. So just tap on the notification that you received, asking you to on your camera, then it will assist you to put on your camera. Thank you very much for joining us. Joseph, Yepu, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a wonderful having you here. Thank you for participating. Esther Njoku, it's wonderful having you here. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. Richflood webinar, please. Thank you for joining us. I know you're looking lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's nice having Engineer Karimo here. So it's nice. I think it would be good to have a photo session with him. Mr. Emmanuel, thank you very much. I think we are taking shots. We just wait for a few more minutes. First, Go thank you for joining us. It's nice having you here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So once again, thank you very much for attending this morning session, as we hope to see you in the afternoon session, that is at 3 p.m. So until then, do have a wonderful day as we unwind and relax, hoping to join us in the afternoon. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Wow, Barrister Jude, thank you very much. I've seen you. Thank you very much for joining us. Mrs. Rita, thank you very much. Fumi Juliet, thank you very much. Wonderful. It's nice having you here. Adiola Adewale Olajubagbe, thank you for joining us. Yes, thank you for joining us. Jeffrey Osonde, thank you for joining us. So, bye.